all the sons of God shouted for glory. May I say to you, it was created for His glory. It's for Him. And then you remember Isaiah. He says in Isaiah 43:7, I have created him for my glory. I have formed him. Yea, I have made him. God has created this universe for His glory. And then God created this universe and man in it for fellowship. He wanted fellowship with man, and God placed that first man in the Garden of Eden. And He wanted this man that He created. He wanted him to have fellowship with. And He had to make him a free moral agent. God could have made a bunch of robots. God could have made a mechanical man and push a button and have him bow down. But God didn't want that kind of a man. God wanted a man to be free to choose Him and to love Him and serve Him. You remember that was the awful slur and blasphemy that Satan hurled against God and against Job. He said, you remember, does Job serve you for naught? In other words, you're paying him to. God says, I want creatures that will, by a free choice, choose me. My friend, the greatest thing you can do as a human being is to, in this world of sin, where everything is against God today, and He's permitted it that way, but He has put you and me in this world as it is today, that you and I can make a choice for Him, and in the midst of all of this unbelief and the blasphemy around us, we can say today, I choose Jesus. I accept and receive Him. I believe in God the Father, Almighty Maker of heaven and earth. That's the most glorious privilege that you and I have. And you can talk about freedom of speech and freedom of everything else. But this poor crowd around us today that's talking about freedom really don't know about it. You have real freedom when you choose Jesus Christ as your Savior. As we are suggesting that you are on the horns of a dilemma today relative to the creation of the world, actually you'll have to depend on speculation or revelation. There's not a third one at all. Now, someone is going to say, but evolution explains the origin of this universe. Well, listen to Dr. Howard Shapelin. We'll be quoting him later on. He is director of the Harvard Observatory, and he says we are still embedded in abysmal ignorance of the world in which we live. We're still absolutely in the dark relative to the creation of this earth on which you and I live. You see, today it's either revelation or speculation. It would seem now that these rocks that have been brought back from the moon are not advancing the theory of the origin of the universe that they had before, that it was the result of a tremendous explosion. It would look so far as if the rocks on the moon do not correspond to rocks on the earth. Well, that's quite upsetting, and as you have probably noted, that the scientists haven't been jumping up and kicking their heels together because of the rocks that have been found on the moon. In other words, there are three areas in which evolution cannot move, and we'll see that here in Genesis, and that is, it cannot bridge the gap from nothing to something. It cannot bridge the gap from something to life, and it cannot bridge the gap between life and humanity. That is, self-conscious human life with a free will. These are gaps that evolution so far has not been able to bridge at all. And the press, of course, always looking for something sensational, comes up with something that's quite interesting. And one of the things that's been put in my hands in the past few days is a fellow Texan sent me something that they're doing down in Texas. As you probably know, that they found down near a place where I used to live on the Paluxy River in Glen Rose, Texas, they have found dinosaur tracks. Well, I've known about that for years. And, of course, you might expect that in Texas you'd have the biggest of everything. So they apparently had the dinosaurs. Now, not only that, but they now have found something that's quite disturbing. They have found some giant human tracks there. And you know that's really upsetting, because it's very difficult to start out with a little amoeba or a little scum on top of the water, and all of a sudden you find walking back there with the dinosaurs human beings that are much bigger than any that we've got today. I want to say that evolution is going to have a lot of problems in the next few years, and may I predict right now that, and I'm merely quoting some scientists, that by the end of this century, evolution will be as dead as a dodo bird. This brings us back to this wonderful story that we want to continue in. I'm of the opinion that first verse, it's a majestic verse, it's a tremendous verse. This is the door into which you will have to walk into the Bible. You have to believe that He is the Creator. He that cometh to God must believe that He is. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Now, let's look at the little verse for just a moment. In the beginning. And that's a beginning you cannot date. You can put it down as billions of years, and I think you probably be accurate, but who knows how many. Man certainly does not know. And God created, and the word create here is bara. That means out of nothing. And actually in the first chapter of Genesis, it's only used 3 times. There are really only 3 acts of creation that we have here. You have, first of all, the creation of something from nothing. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Then you have the creation of life. God created great whales and every living creature that moveth. That's down in verse 21, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind, and God saw that it was good. That's animal life of all kinds. And then the third act of creation, you find in verse 27, so God created man in His own image. In the image of God created Him, male and female created Him. You have the creation of something from nothing. You have the creation of life, and then the creation of human life, of human beings. And believe me, theistic evolution is not the answer at all. Theistic evolution, of course, is rather untenable, but it attempts to follow creation until you come up to man, and then Adam and Eve were the products of some evolutionary process. The theistic evolutionist makes the days in Genesis a period of time, a long period of time, and we do not believe, of course, that that is true, and I think that it's very clear that that is not true. God called the evening and the morning the first day, and I'm of the opinion that it's quite clear in this chapter, as we shall see in another place. But now coming back to verse 1 again, He created the heaven and the earth. Now the earth is separated from the rest of creation here. Why? Well, that's the hometown of man. That's where man is to be placed, and we're very much interested in him because we belong to this creature. We need to realize that we're a creature, and a creature of God, and as a creature of God, we owe Him something. Now, we have in this something that is very important. It was years ago that Herbert Spencer said that the most general forms into which the manifestation of the unknowable are redivisible, and this is the way he divided it: time, space, matter, force, motion. And many